Hey everyone, it's me, Chala F, back again for the month of February talking about this month's library haul. And of course, it's February, and that means Valentine's Day, so that's exactly the theme that we have for our children's books for this month. For those of you who don't know, this is your first time watching. Library Haul is just a short video about all the books that I checked out this month from the library, and usually I have one surprise book that shocked me when I found it on the shelf. So while it might not fit into this month's theme, it is something that I just had to check out. So to get on with this month's library haul, we have our very first book, which is Love Splat by Rob Scotton. This book was a favorite of my youngest. This is about Splat, who's preparing for Valentine's Day, and he sees that he is in love with a little white cat named Kitten, but it doesn't really look like she likes him back. So he gets an awesome surprise at the end of the book, and we also see that he's not the only cat that's in love with Kitten. It's a fun book, full of colors, full of all things Valentine, and a really fun read. Our next Valentine book was the opposite. It's called A Frankenstein Valentine, and this is by Samantha Berger. In this book, we look at a child who's not as happy about Valentine's Day, but he also learns that Valentine's Day doesn't have to be all bad when you have a best friend that feels the exact same way that you do. This book was a favorite of my middle son, who is in the third grade, and he loves the different sound effects that goes along with this book. So this was a pretty fun read and a pretty fun anti-Valentine book for kids. But to stick at a good time reading Valentine books for the month of February, we got to read them every night. The kids generally enjoyed it, and it was just a fun thing for the month since Valentine's Day is actually one of my favorite holidays. And we're not even. For our next book for the month of February, I chose The Great Fairy Tale Disaster, and this is by David Conway. And this book is about the wolf from The Three Little Pigs. He's ready to try his life in a different fairy tale. So he goes on an adventure to find the perfect story for him, and along the way he causes a bit of trouble with Jack and the Beanstalk, Cinderella, and everyone else whose story he crosses into, and he soon finds himself back in hot water again like he always does. So this was a great little reminiscent piece about fairy tales and stories that you may not have told or read in a very long time with a bit of a twist. So this was a pretty fun book to read to kind of get a little bit out of the Valentine thing. So next we'll talk about the YA book that I got for the month, for Survive the Night, and this is by Danielle Vega. This book is about a group of friends who get stuck in the tunnels of New York. They go to a rave party and lose one of their friends, so while they're searching for her, they find a horrible scene and find out that they too have to get out of these tunnels as soon as possible. While I enjoy reading this book, and it was definitely a little bit different take on YA than I normally read, the ending still left me a little bit puzzled, a little bit questioning if it ended a little bit too neatly for all the other things that take place in the story, but it was still a pretty good book. So always scour the shelves for a book that I'm shocked to find, or it's a book that the cover caught my attention, or I saw it being recommended on Twitter or something like that. So for our final book for this month's library haul, I had so much fun catching up on my old memories and old stories when I checked out Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and these are all composed or collected by Alvin Schwartz. And this book was a find for me because I actually used to read this book when I was like 9 and 10 years old. I checked it out from the very same library back then, so it wouldn't even surprise me if this was the actual book I held in my hands when I was 10 years old and reading these type of stories. When it comes to thriller and suspense, is one of my favorite genres in movies and in books. And all of these stories aren't really scary. Some of them are funny. And of course, now as an adult, 20 years later, they're definitely not scary. So they're pretty mild for kids, but it was a really fun read, and it was just a real good surprise to find it still on the shelf at the very library that I spent so much of my time as a kid at. So that was it for the month of February's library haul. I'll be back in a couple weeks to share with you the books that we found for the month of March. And of course, we're going to try to find some things that are St. Patrick's Day themed. And of course, we'll also start getting into our spring season. So hopefully we'll find some books to celebrate the spring. So I can't wait to talk with you all again. Be sure to go back and check out January's library haul. Be sure to watch this video and share it. And I look forward to sharing my library haul with you all for the month of March.